Hello, hello. Do 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 do. What's up? Here we go. I think we're on. Let me do a check. What are you doing? Don't forget your water.
Lemonade.
Lemonade, whatever you want to call it. See you, Rod. What's up, Coach Kevin?
Hello.
See if we're live.
Do you like my rendition of Beauty and the Beast?
I don't know what you're.
Oh, you were singing along.
Oh, we got sound. Oh, there's. What's up? Wave at Yukian County. All right, I gotta turn that off for us. The sound of reverb. All right. All right. Today, Kevin, listen. Are you listening?
I was listening.
You're all ears. We gotta hurry up. We gotta do it. I gotta be out of here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, we had a visitor that we were chit-chatting with, but I have a meeting and a call at 7. A very important call at 7.
Do you have to be home by then, or?
I mean, I would prefer to do the call from home as opposed to from here, but you know, so I'd like to end by.
So we're getting warmed up real quick.
We need a warm up. I mean, this is a warm up. I was doing some research about your best bud.
Which one?
Wes.
Let's not.
Your boy, Wes. Your brother in arms,
No,
Wes.
the guy I watched on YouTube.
You guys kind of look alike.
Let's not. I don't like where this is going.
What?
Nah.
It's an interesting thing. He has an interesting story. I actually looked up his case. He has a published decision.
Yeah, a lot of people that I don't want to be associated with are interesting.
I mean, it was like you said that he was involved in some marijuana.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying that's like bad. Like,
No,
I'm not saying he's a
I'm
bad
not saying
guy.
either.
He's just-
Apparently, do you want to hear the facts of the case?
He's not my boy, is all
Okay,
I'm saying.
he's not. I was just kidding.
Yeah.
Other than
I'm
like,
just saying,
loving
like
him.
I might have family members who watch this. I don't know if they do.
Oh, do you?
Maybe. I don't know. Probably not.
I don't know. I was looking. I mean, you never can tell, but definitely some questioning on, of his credentials, whatever.
Those are credentials. Like he went to prison.
Well, that's not in dispute, but apparently some people are questioning like his status in certain groups and whether or not he was high or low, or like the rhetoric matches the reality, like that kind of stuff.
Questioning his authenticity.
In
essence.
I guess.
Yeah.
But I've never heard him actually say, so I've never actually heard it, which, I mean, in a way is comforting. Like, he's a criminal, right? He's a felon. There's no question that he went to prison. The reason he went to prison is because he robbed and beat up a drug dealer.
Oh.
That's, so.
Shouldn't do that.
I mean, he's good. He's a good guy because he beats up drug dealers.
Why does that make him good?
Because beating up drug dealers is good.
Why?
I don't know. I'm just
Okay,
whatever.
Sure.
He's like the serial killer that kills
Yeah,
serial
he's
killers.
the reason why we like the Punisher. Great. Like,
But
sure.
But in a way, it's comforting that he's not not necessarily. He could be. We don't know.
What do you mean it's comforting?
But let's say he were a member of a real organized, white supremacist, criminal enterprise.
Yeah, you'd be not.
That would not be the person that you'd should be taking, or maybe you'd not be hesitant to take career advice or life advice from
Notice
that dude.
my hesitancy to be immediately associated with them.
Right? I mean, if someone said to you, hey, I have successfully, become a drug and criminal kingpin, right? And let me teach you the lessons of my success.
Oh yeah, I totally watch that.
It's kind of like watching Breaking Bad, right? You're like, oh, how does this mild-mannered chemistry teacher become the most feared, drug dealer?
It's like that, but
That's a fictional story, but there is an element of people.
Yeah. Like curiosity, like a glimpse into I don't know, I wouldn't say other culture, but like a life
It's
that you're not involved with.
like why The Godfather is popular,
Yeah.
right? People like to watch.
Criminals.
Yeah, but successful criminals, right?
People like
or you
success.
could do it for comedy effect where you watch incompetent criminals, right? That also has its appeal, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and there's some comedic scenes where they want to be criminals who are actually really good guys, but they're in a pinch, and so they do some bad things, and then hijinks and hilarity ensue.
Yeah.
But in a way, it's comforting when the guy it might not be, you know, as bad as he might have been.
Wait, are you saying that he's not as bad as he might have been because he was good at what he did?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that, you know, while he puts out an image of being like a really bad person.
No, not really.
Well, I mean, if you are
A reformed bad person.
What?
He had been a bad person.
Okay, formerly a bad person.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. The fact that that might be a little bit of a lie. I mean, he certainly was not living a good life, right? He wasn't living his best life. I don't think it takes away from his message that much.
I mean, do you think that, if you found out that, he wasn't a neo-Nazi general, he was just a neo-Nazi foot soldier, would that change his message overall?
I mean...
you weren't the best of the best of your neo-Nazi friends, why would we listen to you?
Well, it's kind of like American History X, where the guy is like a big neo-Nazi. Then he goes to prison where he's a neo-Nazi, and then he breaks with the neo-Nazis and comes back and is like preaching why you shouldn't be a neo-Nazi.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I think that was pretty much what, at least that sounds similar to what happened to him. Where at some point,
I don't know his whole story. This is what I'm trying to find out. I'm trying to find out what,
I think it's
what is the narrative of his story?
I think he broke off out when he got out.
All right.
But I could be mistaken. That's why, I don't know. I don't want to say I'm best buds with him because you never know who he's best buds with. You know.
I'm just trying to find out. It's one of those things where I'll give you an example of another thing that I was noticing. Right. So there's the whole David Goggins. Goggins is super popular. Came out with a super popular book, very inspiring story. But when no one's disputing that Dave Goggins was like a Navy SEAL, and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But he certainly has not gotten the type of universal acclaim from that community.
Yeah.
So within the community, I don't think that they are as much fans of his.
Yes.
As the if you just tell me hey, I'm a Navy SEAL, I'm like, holy shit, you're amazing. Right? Just the fact that you did that, I'm amazed.
Yeah.
But when you're within that group of people and they're all Navy SEAls, right?
Yeah.
The fact that
he's an outlier, not for good reasons.
I don't know what the reason are. It just strikes me as like he wasn't, he even talks about this in his book, in his podcast, of how he was a long period of time. I think he did one combat platoon, and then he was doing recruiting, a lot of recruiting for the Navy, and then he was doing kind of support, equipment, material, prepositioning, type, logistics type of stuff within. Certainly important stuff, but not, a combat, that's my understanding, right? I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, for me, it's interesting to know your actual story, your actual position within the community, of which you were a part, but it doesn't necessarily take away, he's actually very upfront about, how he almost he basically sabotaged himself, and he's obvious, he uses that. It's not like he's hiding what?
Cowards?
Yeah. He's very upfront about it, and he'll say, at the end, he's like, the reason I didn't do this, right, the reason I didn't make it to the next step, or the reason that I rubbed some people the wrong way, was because of my attitude.
Yes.
He's like, the attitude that, allowed me to get this far, at some point, it actually became counterproductive and self-destructive. Within that.
Yeah.
He talks about how he got injured all the time because he's pushing himself too hard, all this stuff. And he was a little self-righteous in terms of all the working out that he wanted to do, and nobody really wanted to do that much with him. But I thought it was interesting, that self-awareness, because, that's rare. And he's very upfront to say, at the time when I was in the middle of it, I thought all these guys were pussies, because I didn't want, that's his word, not mine.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I wanted to be hard. I wanted to run every day, and I wanted to lift all these weights, and these guys didn't want to, and he's like, I thought they were soft, and I was very dismissive and disrespectful to them, right?
War was a team sport.
So he's like, yeah, he wasn't a team player, and he thought everybody was always against him because that was his MO.
Yeah.
Everyone's against me.
Yeah.
But when you are on a team with a group of other people, you can't have attitude. It's not the right attitude.
Nope.
I was also reading something today that was very interesting about Spencer Fisher. I don't know if you remember him. He was an MMA fighter in the UFC for, probably out of Militich fighting systems. If you remember Pat Militich, Matt Hughes was part of that team. Jens Pulver. You know who Matt Hughes is, right?
I've heard of Matt Hughes.
Yeah, Matt Hughes is, go look him up. Go YouTube some of his fights. So Matt Hughes was the guy who dominated the welterweight division of the UFC for many years. And that was, he had great matches against BJ Penn. He had matches against Henzo, or one match. He had matches, he beat GSP. So he was like the reigning champion. And he beat GSP, and then GSP came back and beat him. And then I think he beat him again. But Matt Hughes was the man for a long time in that division until GSP came along and basically dethroned him. But back to Spencer Fisher. He was a very exciting fighter. But he fought, I think, 17 or 18 times in the UFC. He was just famous for just having a really aggressive, I think it was a lightweight, really aggressive style, really, like a banger. Wrestling, not great, not terrible, but not something that anybody would write home about. And just basically chronicling his career. But it's really sad because the guy has neurological damage from all the fights. He gets basically, the UFC kind of carried him for a while. He was like an ambassador, way like T. Ortiz was, or
Muhammad.
Well, I mean, that's what it is. He has issues with balance, with memory, with, just everyday functioning. And, no one thinks about, when they're watching the UFC, or very few people think about, what the fighters are going through. What is the price that is paid by the fighters personally for the entertainment that we all watch, right? We just watch this fighter in the match, maybe there's some hype video or something like that people put up, like promotional stuff, and you watch them training, and you're like, wow. Maybe you see a picture of their face when they're all jacked up after a fight, but you don't really get into the nitty gritty of what happens to these guys and women after they retire.
Yeah.
And all those things that come back, all the injuries and all the lasting damage, the chronic injury, chronic damage that they have. It's a sad thing, man. It's a sad, ugly sport. It really is. And he was never a champion. He was a really good, well-established fighter. I think he may have had a title shot or shot for a title shot or something like that. Certainly not an elite level guy, but a very good guy. You fight 17 times in the UFC, you're good. Really good. But, and now the UFC won't return his phone calls. They're like, that's why these guys want a union. No, it's true. It's the same thing with the NFL. Although I think it's harder for a fighter to say, I didn't know that I ran the risk for brain damage. And as with football, they denied a long time and obfuscated about the actual risks of concussions.
Yeah.
And it was something they actually glorified at the same time. UFC obviously is glorifying knockouts. But no one's under any impression that
So is football though.
No, for sure. But at some point it shifted. I remember in the 80s and the 90s, they used to show these highlight reels of basically receivers and quarterbacks getting blown up.
Yeah.
Doing crossing patterns, and then the safety would come in and just blindside them, and they would laugh. They'd be making jokes about the dude twitching on the ground, and the guy doing, the dance, and or sometimes they'd knock himself out too, and then
That's fun.
All this stuff. And I remember there was a video game, I think it was Madden, where if you did that to somebody in the game, Madden would say something like, the bad news, he hit him so hard that his helmet came flying off, but the good news is his head doesn't look like it's in it still. But it was like they make these jokes about guys getting absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
There were famous images, like Ronnie Lott.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the other free safeties back in the day. It's just anybody, like on the Eagles. I forget what his name was. Like, I think it was named. Oh, was it? No, Waters was a running back, I think. But you know, it was like on every team there was a dude in the back whose whole job was just to blow up whoever came across the field.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And if the ball was in the air, and you could hit the dude before the, you know, like I think that was almost.
Oh really?
I don't even know if that was like nowadays if you do that, with the ball's in the air and there's like the defenseless receiver, like you'll get ejected and fined if you blow the guy out.
Oh really?
Back then it was like, you threw it up there,
Yeah.
you hung out your receiver for, you know, and then it was actually famous that like Randy Moss, I think it was Randy Moss, was like, I'm not doing that.
What do you mean?
He was like, if you throw it over the middle and make me jump up for it, I'm not going to go and run that pattern. I'm not going to risk my life. I think it was Randy Moss.
Yeah.
It could have been another famous receiver, but there was a famous receiver who's like, no.
They didn't just replace him?
No, he was amazing. He was an amazing player. That's why it was such a big deal. Yeah, if it was just a random, you know, guy, they would have been like, okay, you're fired. Next person.
But it was Randy Moss.
But it was some. I mean, I shouldn't say it was Randy Moss because I'm not 100% sure, but it was somebody of that kind of caliber who was just like,
Yeah.
no. Like if you want somebody to go do that, go get the second string guy because I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Why should I risk? I think you know what it may have been. It may have been a Jets receiver. I think of it. Maybe it wasn't Randy Moss, but it was essentially a guy who was like.
Yeah.
You know, he's a first round pick. He's a really good guy.
Man.
But I think it's a harder sell in MMA where it's like everyone gets knocked out. You know, that's how.
I've heard arguments that like MMA is supposedly like less concussive because of the like you don't hit as hard from the padding, but I've never like I don't know if it's true.
Well, when you are dealing with kicks
compared to boxing.
Well, the thing is with boxing is that because you have the gloves,
Yeah.
and you can hit a lot harder.
Yeah.
In my understanding, your hands are a lot more protected.
Yeah.
And because the surface area is bigger, so that like it transfers more of this sort of shock concussive value to the brain.
Mm-hmm.
But also there's a thing in boxing where if you get knocked down, they let you get back up. They give you a standing 8, and then they put you back in.
Yeah.
So you just got a concussion, and now it's like as long as you can like act like you didn't have a concussion.
Yeah.
Hey, go get another concussion. You know, like, and you can do that multiple rounds. So you could get knocked down. You know, once in the second, once in the fifth, 2 times in the 8th.
Yeah.
You know, you could get 5 knockdowns in a fight, or more.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, the guys that get it the worst are the ones that they're knocked out, but they get knocked out, but they get concussions, but they don't go down.
Yeah.
They just stay up and they take the whole fight.
Yeah.
There was a guy in New York who died, or not, he didn't even die. He was like you know, basically, he wasn't a paraplegic, but like he made, you know, he can't walk or talk on his own. He can't do anything by himself anymore. He was like a heavyweight, I think. Sad story.
Why can't people just break each other's arms? Punching each other in the face.
They said that the first day that Spencer Fisher went to Militich Fighting Systems, I think it was Militich and another guy, maybe it was Jens Pulver, they said they took turns trying to see who could hit him hard enough to make him quit in sparring. Spencer's like, Fisher's like, I thought they hated me. I thought they really hated me. And he's like, but then I realized they just did that to everybody, just try to get everyone to quit. That was the MO. Is I'm gonna like just torture you.
Yeah.
And the ones who refuse to quit
Stay.
can stay and go on to a long career of
Abuse.
And you know, getting CTE. You know, and Matt Hughes, actually I think Matt Hughes got into he may have gotten into a car accident and because he's now mentally shot. But yeah, those guys, man, they were tough. That was a tough team.
Yeah.
For sure, that was a tough team.
Well, you get really tough if you do that. Really tough. How many concussions have you got from jiu-jitsu?
From jiu-jitsu?
Yeah. I've got a couple.
I mean, I don't remember, so. can think of 2 or 3 for sure. 2 or 3 for sure. I got Brandon, the wrestler, the Olympic wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
He slammed me once when the first time we ever rolled, he slammed me, and I went out, and then I came right back to it. and then I chopped him, but he was a beast. I underestimated how strong a 125-pound dude could be.
Yeah.
And how hard he could slam me to the ground.
That happened to me too. Yeah, I had that same experience. I was at Top Team, and I think it was Brooks. He fought for the UFC, Jared Brooks, and he just picked me up, put me down, and he's like 125 pounds. And I was just like, huh. And then my head just goes, boom.
Yeah. Did he put you down hard, or did he put you down nice?
He put me down as
like
hard as would have been appropriate.
So not like he wasn't trying to like murder you.
No, he was, but it was appropriate at the time.
Okay.
Like he wasn't like malicious about it. He was just like doing the thing that he had to do.
The thing that you have to, it's easy to like look at a bigger guy and be like, oh, I'm gonna be careful with that person because they look yoked. No, that's easy, right? Like if you look at a smaller person, a person who's shorter than you, 125 pound, and you don't make the mistake of thinking that 120, like a person who's much smaller than you, can't jack you up.
Yep.
Those guys, I mean, if they've been wrestling, they've been doing judo, the smaller they are, usually the nastier they are, has been my experience.
Yeah.
They don't play.
This guy had been wrestling since he was like 5.
Yeah.
And his brother had wrestled, and his dad had wrestled.
And I mean, Brandon didn't pick me up. He got me in a single, and then he slammed me down from my hip. He actually got my leg up on his shoulder, and then he kicked to my hip, and then he slammed me down. And I was trying to hold, so the problem was, instead of just going down, I held onto his head.
Yeah.
And that's when he just slid down to my hip, and then he just like whipsaw. There was that guy. There was the guy who backsplashed me.
Oh yeah.
I definitely got a concussion from that one. And I think there was another time in Miami at least once in Miami where I got slammed to the ground. I mean, getting slammed was very common back then because you would play close guard all the time.
Yeah.
And slamming was totally legit. Like it was your fault if you got slammed.
Yeah.
I think that's true even today.
It's true.
Even today.
I mean, you should never assume that the person isn't going to do something that could hurt you. But
I mean, I think you have to like hook the leg,
yeah.
Or let go, right? You don't let the person pick you up. I mean, after everyone saw, I think the most famous one was Abu Dhabi when what's his face slammed. There was the Rampage Jackson slam against I think the Shogun in Pride.
Are you thinking of the Marcelo Garcia one?
But then there was Marcelo Garcia where he got backsplashed, and then there by Rico Rodriguez, and then there was there was another where Ricardo Arona slammed somebody out of Ricardo Arona. If you don't know that name, you should go look him up because he was a bad man.
There was a guy.
I don't think he ever got a point scored on him. And he wrecked people. Like it wasn't because he was just like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm just gonna stall out here. He like went out like a.
I knew a black belt in Indiana who was famous for being thrown into a table, or through a table, like the scorekeeper's table.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Was it by somebody famous?
No. I think it was like a Naga or something. But yeah.
That Naga will happen.
He just got picked up, and the guy was just like, "This will solve all my problems." And
it may not solve all of his, but it's going to give you a great big one, right?
Yeah. Make you think about something else for a while.
Like all those birds flying around your head or stars or whatever they are.
The worst thing that happened to me was a shoulder dislocation during a tournament.
Oh yeah? Now was that because you were too stupid to tap?
That was
because the guy was just so vicious?
I was too stupid to break fall. I was just like you, I was prioritizing what was going on up here, and he took me down. And instead of break falling.
Oh, you based that on your elbow.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I've been break falling since I was 6.
Yeah.
They teach us that and in martial arts when you're young. And
but what were you doing back then? Like what was the art?
Jiu Jitsu.
When you were how?
Oh, when I was that was Okinawa karate.
I mean, because you can learn to break fall, right? And in your mind.
No, it's the same.
Well, I know it's the same technique, but unless you are getting consistently thrown all the time, it's like I could learn how to box, but unless I'm taking shots all the time, in real sparring, I'm going to make mistakes.
We would do warm-ups in Jiu-Jitsu where we do our break falls, but
no, it's not the same. What I'm saying is standing. When you actually do randori in judo, And at any moment,
Yeah.
you can just wind up getting
But
thrown.
we weren't doing judo, so but we weren't doing.
But
judo.
you weren't. So what I'm saying is like you can learn how to do this stuff, but if you don't have to, even if you do have to, you're probably going to injure yourself anyway eventually, right? Because it's just a dangerous thing. But if you're not consistently having to like use that skill of break falling,
Yeah.
then you're going to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
I don't think I did that because I had an underdeveloped skill of break falling.
By definition, you had an underdeveloped skill of break
No.
falling. Yes.
Like, no.
Yes.
My break fall then and now is
It's
good.
kind of like, like what even high-level judo players, they get hurt when they resist the throw.
Yeah, so are you saying that they have bad break falls?
Yes, by definition, they have a bad break
No,
fall.
no,
Because you know why?
No, by definition.
Because the
at
good
that
break fall
moment-
is when you realize and you accept and you take the fall. That's when you don't get hurt. Is when you take when
Yeah.
you're like, I am defeated.
But if you don't break fall at all, that's not a bad break fall.
Well, if you dislocate your shoulder,
I didn't
break
break
your
fall.
elbow,
I didn't break fall. That wasn't me break falling poorly. That was me not prioritizing.
your break falling skills were substandard.
No, that's not true.
Or maybe your judgment was substandard.
And it was.
Right,
Because
so-
of why? Not because my break falls are bad, but because
Wow.
I was in a tournament. And my priority during tournaments isn't arrest my fall and be safe. It's, oh shit, like I need to deal with this guy. Like same reason.
And you know
for,
what? I
For
think
your
that's-
concussions, did you break fall?
What's that?
For your concussions, did you break fall?
Probably yes.
Well,
Well, not for the rear naked because I still had that one.
One of them you said that you were grabbing their head as you went down as
So
well.
I had the head. So then when he slammed me down, I did slap. I think I can't 100% remember,
Mm.
but I'm pretty sure I did.
Mm-hmm.
At some moment, because I was doing judo a lot at that point, so
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure I did. It did not help me at all because it was just like he just.
Mm.
It was bad. You don't get thrown like that very often in judo.
Yeah, it was a weird. It wasn't like a. It was neither a judo or it was just two white belts doing stand up.
Yeah.
So it was like
Yeah.
not something that you're used to falling for, and it was just like this weird trip. And I just remember my arm came out of the socket, and I was like, oh, this is bad. And then it went back in. I was like, okay, all right,
That should be good,
close
right?
guard, and then we kept going, and it came back out again. And
Ooh.
it tapped. It was not fun.
I had a friend, Doug, who his shoulders would come out every so often, with or without my assistance. And he'd be like, it got to a point where he would come out and he'd be like, you just have to give him a second.
No.
He was like Riggs in Lethal Weapon, where he hit his shoulder on the wall and it would pop back in.
That's not how it should be.
And then you just keep rolling with him.
No, that's. I mean, that happened as well. Like, because I didn't get the surgery immediately because I had to go to China. So I went to China. And
You did get surgery in China?
No, but I almost like had to because it came out again when I was training, and like that was awful. Like being in a foreign gym.
Yeah.
And needing like
A medical attention?
Medical attention, and it didn't just pop back in. It was not that. It was not good.
If only Hansen had been there,
But-
he could have hooked you up.
But like, if you don't get the surgery, then yeah, that's just how it is.
It just gets loose and just comes out
Yeah,
whenever.
'cause
Yeah.
the labor was just up
Yeah.
or however, at least if that was my case.
Yeah.
But yeah, after the surgery, it stays in. That's nice, and that's why I don't do stand up or tournaments anymore. It's traumatic. I don't like it.
You're not gonna start crying, are you?
No.
Do you need a safe space?
No. Like that? No, that experience sucked, and I was off the mat for like
Yeah.
basically a year.
Yeah.
Not worth it.
No.
My break falls were fine.
Well, if you say so, you seem very defensive about it.
I'm very defensive about it.
It's okay to accept.
I mean,
some-
you're making an assertion having never seen my break falls as a
I
white
have
belt.
seen. As a white belt, that's true.
Like, are you saying
I'm
my
not.
break falls
You know
now
what?
are
You
bad?
you kind of took this more
let's
personally
take
than
this
what I
back.
meant to
Are you
say.
saying that my break falls now are not good?
I haven't seen your break fall in a long
I
time.
teach them every day, not every day. A lot.
I wasn't trying to make a point about you. You kind of made it personal on yourself. All I was trying to say is, in general, if you don't practice a particular skill under something close to, like, look, this was my only point, right?
Mhm.
If you go to a karate school or any kind of martial arts school,
Mhm.
learning a break fall
Mhm.
is, you should learn it, right? You should be learning break falls, no matter what your martial art is,
Mhm.
right? In my opinion.
Mhm.
Other people might disagree. I mean, if it's boxing, you probably don't have to to learn it. But you know, any kind of like traditional martial art, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, like you should know how to take a fall. That's an important thing because people fall. But if you're in a sport where the whole point is to like take the other person down or have them take you down, well, that skill gets a lot more important and it gets used a lot more and developed a lot more. So my only point was that you can learn. It's like if I go to jiu-jitsu, I start off with Brazilian jiu-jitsu and I learn how to do arm locks and chokes, right? And then at some point I stopped doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu or defending these things, defending submissions, counter and escaping. But if at some point I've learned all that, I did everything right, but then I go off and I start doing like Muay Thai or I start doing whatever martial art.
Can I stop you real quick?
No, let me finish my thought.
Okay.
Those skills will necessarily atrophy, even if I was really good at them and did them all properly way back in my old sport, right? If I go to another sport where it's not emphasized, or I go to a sport and maybe it's like a taekwondo school and they teach me some basic chokes and whatever, escapes, maybe they're good, I don't know. But then I go to like a real place, like a real jiu-jitsu school, and I have to actually defend and use those skills. Even if what I was taught was great, if I'm taught some good grappling skills or defensive grappling skills, but I spent all my time at that school kicking and punching, when I go to a real grappling school, I'm probably not going to be as good at exercising those skills. That's the only thing I was saying.
Can I say that I also attended judo classes and judo club while I was training?
Sure.
So I would say that, my break falling was adequate at the time. Just because I learned it in karate when I was 5 doesn't mean I didn't have a chance to get exposed to break falling. And I'll have you know, it's the same. There are only so many ways you can fall safely, and this guy didn't invent any new ones. He went over to judo and he stole them, just like he stole all the other
I'm not saying
throws
it's
that he
about
taught.
like whether you were taught the right thing. What I'm saying, or that you could even do
I
it.
was break falling every week.
No,
I don't know.
I'm not saying if you learn it that you're not learning a good. It's not good.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that if you're not consistently forced to actually use it in a competitive situation against good people where you're getting thrown all the time or whatever the thing is, you're going to.
The issue is that
it's not going to be as sharp.
The ask is that I prepare for my first jiu-jitsu tournament, right? Where I'm not doing judo. I can't create this environment.
Yes. Well, here's the other thing that I think the lesson that you could draw from this, that I might draw from it, maybe not you, right? Is that if you're going to a jiu-jitsu tournament, right?
Full guard.
Don't do standing.
Yeah. That's.
If you're not comfortable, if you're not, no.
You denounce me.
If you're good, I've seen guys that are really good at jiu-jitsu get murdered by judo guys, right? And I've seen the vice versa. And why does that happen? Why does it happen? Is because either the jiu-jitsu guy decides to keep standing with the judo guy, and then they pay the price, or the judo guy thinks, oh, I'll do some jiu-jitsu with the jiu-jitsu guy, and bad things ensue for the judo guy.
I agree.
Play to your strength. So that's the thing. When I see white belts, just general run-of-the-mill white belts, not the former D1 wrestler who's now competing in the white belt division. That guy should take everyone down. He should never.
Sure.
He should not do any jiu-jitsu. He should just double leg everyone in that tournament if he can. And everyone in the tournament, once they see him double leg the first guy, they should all pull guard. They should all sit immediately, right? So you gotta have to know yourself and understand your own limitations. There's nothing scarier in my mind than watching two white belts do pretty much anything, right?
Well,
but especially stand up.
Because there's so much energy in the mix. If
You see it all the time. You're running around and you're just
Well, no, I didn't mean because they're white belts. It's because you're standing, right? If
that's also true.
If something goes wrong when you're laying down, you can only fall a foot, right? But if you're standing and you fall, you drop 5 or 6 feet, and the odds are.
And the guy falls on top of you.
Or if it falls on a finger or a wrist or an elbow, that's going to be enough energy to break it instead of just hurting or spraining it. So that's why I always bring it down, or at least I try and stay as low as possible, because if I fall.
Which is hard because you're so damn tall.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm a guard puller, but I don't know. I agree. But also, I do what I want. If I want to stand with someone, I'll stand with someone.
Hey, I remember the tournament where I got guillotined to death by Chico Mendes. And why was that? Why did that happen? Because in my mind, I've been doing so much judo, I was like, I'm not gonna pull, I'm not gonna sit.
Yeah.
And and then I was so dumb and dead set on that even after he almost tore off my head the first time,
Yeah.
I went back to that well, right? I was like, okay, you know what? And I paid the price because I was too dumb and too stubborn to realize that this guy was going to murder me. And yeah, you know what? If I had pulled guard, he probably still would have killed me.
Yeah.
But it would not have been from the nastiest guillotine that I've ever been placed. Actually, is that true? It was pretty nasty because even though Henzo and everybody at Henzo's has they have different types of guillotines, nobody actually tried to twist my head off my shoulders like Chico Mendes did.
Nice.
And he was crazy strong.
Yeah.
He was middleweight, but so when I watched him originally, he was heavyweight. Like, and I was watching his tape before, I knew he was going to be my division. I might see him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I watched him, he was like a heavyweight.
Yeah.
And I was like, whatever, if he's in middleweight, he's going to be really, tired, cutting weight.
Nope.
Not gonna, dude, that guy, and then I looked at his his resume, he's not an elite guy. Like, he's not, Abu Dhabi elite or anything, but he is really good. He's won a lot of tournaments. And I did not have enough, maybe it's not like I didn't have enough respect, but I had overestimated my own ability to stay, or even the wisdom of staying on my feet with that guy.
Yeah.
So you should be honest with yourself.
My first tournament though, and this is why I don't like hard and fast rules. I don't like concrete rules because guard pulling is usually good, except for in my experience, I had a good tournament where I was watching this kid and he would pull guard or he would pull guard, and he would sweep and he was just dominating everyone. I was just watching him. I was like, okay, he's gonna pull guard. So as soon as he did, ankle lock.
Oh,
boom! It was the finals, and it was great.
Yeah.
And it was the only time I didn't ever pull guard, is because
because you knew that he was set. That was his.
That was his game plan. And
no, I'm not. You know me. I'm not a always never person either. I'm very much context specific. You should always look at yourself, your opposition, the rules of the match. Be honest about what your best chance to win is. And so if you're up against a D1 wrestler, then you don't want to give up points and position right off. You're probably not going to win that battle. Could you? Maybe. I remember back in the day, it would be like, oh, we just guillotine. But now they're too smart. They know what a guillotine is now.
Yeah.
And they're really, all they see are guillotines all day. So that guy who shoots for a double, you're probably not the first person to try to slap on the guillotine on that guy.
Yeah.
And you just have to. The other thing I would say is like you're saying, if you're in a standing position with somebody, your chances of if you get thrown, or even if you throw, you could still get injured. You could really badly hurt yourself throwing somebody else.
Yeah.
I've had people, I threw Caesar once, and he almost blew up my knee. Not any reason for him, but
just
I went to do a Uchimata version of a overtime, like a whizzer. I had him in a whizzer, and then I went up but I'd thrown him 2 times before.
So he based.
And so I'd thrown him twice before with that same throw, and they were big throws, and so I felt bad. So I took a little bit off.
You wanted to commit it.
And then he it wasn't his fault. He didn't do it on purpose, but he just dropped onto my knee, and so my knee. I don't know if I can even do it with my foot.
Yeah.
But I was still standing while he landed everything, and I thought for sure as it was happening, that's it. I'm going to the hospital. It was slow motion, the heart hitting you, and I was like, that's it. I'm going to the hospital. This is it. There's no way I'm getting up out of this.
Yeah.
As he's falling in, it was classic drop into the knee, and I was lucky. I didn't have any injury from that. But the thing is, I took something off of it, so I didn't throw him clean.
Yeah.
If you're going to throw, this is my advice. If you're going to throw somebody, throw them. Do not have mercy on them, because it doesn't actually do yourself any favor. It's worse. You will get hurt being nice.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're trying to hurt your partner.
You also you don't want to change your partner's expectations mid-throw.
Exactly. He's expecting to get tossed. So if you don't hit him hard, then he's going to have a little bit left over, and his weight backwards or sideways or into you or whatever. You can't be nice.
If you hesitate,
you're gonna get. I deserve to get hurt with that, and that was on me because I took some off of it. No, what I'm saying is I don't blame him. I would blame myself. I was more experienced. I was a lot more experienced. I should have known better, but it's one of those things. You take mercy, and no good deed goes unpunished.
when I do jiu-jitsu, there are often times when I find myself about to do something that I've never done, and I'm not sure what's going to happen when I do it.
Yeah.
But every time before I do that thing, I always try and say, or think to myself, like, might this hurt me or the training partner? Like, could this at all possibly hurt the person? And depending on what that answer is, determines like how I go about doing that move, right? Like, you shouldn't do things you've never done without first considering what the potential consequences
I mean, there's a couple of things that, I mean, I think the same way, which is, you know, and again, this is usually when you're, not always when you're better than your training partner, but at least you have an advantage, like you have a distinct advantage over the person.
Yeah.
Even for just a split second.
But even then, like, sometimes if you're losing, you could have an idea.
Yeah.
And it's just like.
So I always think of like, is it on somebody's neck? If it's a throw, I don't like to experiment with throws.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I haven't hit a throw all the time, because you know, you just go on YouTube and you can watch all the videos of people doing crazy stuff and knocking themselves out, or you know, hurting themselves and or their partners doing some stupid, crazy throwing stuff. And also knees. I don't really like
anything that twists the knee.
I'm not a big fan of twisting, like straight. Like if you get your arm popped like that, you get your foot locked, you know, like a typical foot lock, straight foot lock.
Yeah. Any sort of hyperextension.
Those are like any sort of torquing on the neck. I don't like to do that. I don't like to do this too much.
I love that though.
Well, no, it works awesome.
Not to submit, but to control, but also kind of to submit. But like, it's just like
it'll make them. You can do it hard enough to make the person want to.
But as far as like posture control goes, like
no, that's fine, right? Like it's fine to push, but like in terms of like actual,
like trying to submit,
like doing something. So sometimes they'll have a grip on you, and the appropriate and maybe only response is to push the head down, right? To break their posture, because if you let their posture stay high, it's like if you get on a single and you have good posture, head's high, you're gonna finish the single. I have to move your head. I have to do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna make you an offer you can't refuse. You're not gonna do this thing, and I'm not gonna break your neck, right? If
or you just physically can't. Like if you push somebody's neck down like this, they can't go that way.
That's the thing. They could if they wanted to, but the consequence would be they're gonna hurt themselves. So it's like you can either.
And usually they still can't. If you can get their neck down far enough that you could.
They shouldn't be able to.
They should, but something you
can.
Well,
you have to like not just have them mechanically unable to move, but you have to convince them psychologically as well. Yeah. And just works really well.
So I mean, that's fine if you're pushing the head down, but like when you're really cranking on it, like there's some really nasty cranks. You know, or somebody's hand, even if their hand is posted. I feel like I'm going to sweep them over a post. I don't like. I mean. I don't generally want to hurt anybody when I'm training. If you're really good, you know, I expect you to be able to do things.
I've been recently like hip switching a lot.
Ooh, yeah. And that's very popular.
Especially to pass, like you take someone down, drive the shoulder in, and I've been trying to like hip switch back. And I really like passing backwards because it's harder to stop. You can't like put a hand in my face or anything. So I'll just like scoot backwards. But sometimes like people's arms and hands get in the way. And like I actively, like if I'm not in the moment and moving really fast or like rolling with someone competitively, like I try to prioritize not landing on their arms. But like every once in a while, I'll switch the hips and arms are gonna be there, and it's like
you gotta. I mean, I think if you start, I mean, it depends on the person again, right? Like you're not gonna. I hope you're not worried about me. I mean, but if I feel someone's hand is on my hip, I'm probably not gonna hip switch on it.
But it's like if
but sometimes they just do it when you're doing it, right? I try my best not to, but I think there's also I would generally tell somebody, don't put your, like if I feel somebody putting their hand on my hip, like after everything, I wouldn't be like in the middle of it.
Don't teach them.
No, I'm not gonna be like, don't do that because otherwise I'll kill you. You know, like no, you just do something else. But later I'll say to them, okay, there was that time you put your hand on my hip. Don't do that. And then the next time I train with them, then I would feel totally free to hip switch.
This does go against our advice from I think a couple weeks ago, where it was not advice, my rant, where I was like, if a person shouldn't do it, don't tell them not to do it. Just do the thing, do the reason why they shouldn't do it. I would say that this is the exception, where like if the thing that they shouldn't do is a thing that they shouldn't do because doing that thing will get them hurt.
Yes.
Hurting them to teach them not to do
It's
that
not a
thing
good move.
isn't the answer.
Yes.
Just don't do that thing.
Yes.
But if it's like something else, it's like
Yes.
jiu-jitsu.
Yes. Like, don't hurt your partner. Like, it
Yeah.
should be a default that you don't want to hurt your partner
But
if you can avoid it.
if you're rolling with someone and they accidentally hit their switch their hips and
Hit
they
their
land on
switches.
you, yeah, they hit their switches, and they like land on your wrist, like you should have had your hands
Yes.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's a bad thing. You don't deserve to get hurt, but it's not the person's
Yes.
fault for you not protecting yourself.
That's true.
It's still a bad thing though, and it could probably warrant a conversation.
Yes.
But yeah.
All right, I gotta go. Short class, short thing today, but we'll be back tomorrow.
Sweet.
All right.
Thank
Thanks, Coach Kevin.
Thank you.
We should go over like all our worst injuries. That would be fun.
Oh, I have a lot.
You have a lot? Who do you think has more, me or you?
Probably you. You've been training.
Because I'm older.
You've been training like 20 years.
For forever.